Dr. Jacob Torres, researcher at Santa Barbara Nutrients, and today I'll be speaking with Jessiana Seville. Jess is a renal dietitian and co-founder and director of the nonprofit Renalign. Jess is an expert at treating patients with chronic kidney disease and is passionate about preventing individuals from reaching the need for dialysis or kidney transplant. She does this through a unique implementation of the latest research in kidney health, renal nutrition therapies, along with providing support structures for patient success. She has also recently partnered with Santa Barbara Nutrients to create the Renew program, a plant-based, ketogenic, low oxalate diet focused on addressing the needs of individuals with polycystic kidney disease. Now, with the introductions out of the way, please enjoy the conversation with Jess Seville. So let's welcome Jess Seville. How are you doing?
Good. It's good to be here. I always like talking with the people at Santa Barbara Nutrients because I think the world of you guys and what you're doing and your research. I just think it's groundbreaking. So it's fun to see you guys.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's it's good to have things that come from the lab and actually turn into something. You know, it's a lot of things just die on the vine when it comes to to a lot of research that we do.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that things actually turn into something in fruition. So anyway, let's just start off, get a little background on you. How did you start your journey to becoming a renal dietitian?
I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of that, but in a nutshell, dietitians, it's a 4-year undergraduate degree, and then you go on and you do like extra internships, trainings. And the last semester that I was in school, I covered for a dietitian who's going on sabbatical to Spain. I covered her dialysis unit. I don't think you can do that anymore, just leave your job and go on sabbatical to Spain, but unless you're in academia, but that's what she was doing. So I covered her unit, and then we would just talk about the patients, and she'd sign off on, things like that. And I realized after that job that I really wanted to work in the world of kidneys. I loved it. So that's really what led me there. And, after I graduated, I went and did a whole bunch of everything in an inner city Baltimore hospital, but I was always drawn to kidneys. So eventually I specialized in kidneys, moved into dialysis, which is where most renal dietitians work. And then after, 7-8 years of that, I was like, I want to be on the other side of this. I want to be on the place where people don't end up on dialysis, because I feel like there's a lot of people here in these chairs that shouldn't be here. If they would have known something, they wouldn't be here. And so that's really what brought me to where I'm at today, where we focus on working to help people sustain and improve the kidney function that they have now.
Yeah, I could imagine that being on the end of the chain is not very inspiring, I would think, in a lot of ways, because at that point it's people are trying to just preserve whatever kidney function, which is almost nothing at that point. They're waiting for transplants, and I think that's really the sad part of this whole story when it comes to chronic kidney disease, polycystic kidney disease, all of these other kidney diseases. I think that's really the goal, right? Keeping people off of dialysis.
Well, it's a quality of life, right? Yeah. I cannot discredit the value of dialysis. It's a life-saving therapy for many people, but the quality of life for most people on dialysis is not really very good. Ends up being a part-time job. If you're in center, it's 12, usually 12 hours a week, plus travel to and from, and not everyone feels real great afterwards. But it is a life-saving therapy. And again, mostly the focus is if there is a potential to improve the health, and it doesn't matter if it is kidney disease or heart disease or epilepsy or anything else, if there is an opportunity to let people live a more full life, then I'm all about that and figuring out what we can do.
Yeah, that's a good position to have. I think, you're right. It's a life-saving tool, and it's done. I mean, it's amazing the bridge that it can gap for, the gap that it creates, between when your kidneys fail and then getting that transplant. I mean, it is a life-saving intervention. So it's not nothing to scoff at, but it's a lot of people don't need to get there. It would be nice to keep people from getting to that point. And I think it's, there's a lot of a lot of research out there that's, and we're always looking for ways to kind of prevent that decline and preventing people from getting to dialysis. So I think that's something to commend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I know I mentioned your intro that you're part of Renalign. So would you mind talking about what Renalign is and how you got started doing that as well?
Yeah, that has been a journey, and something that we're really proud of. Has been a steep learning curve. I mean, everything we've done, I feel like, is a steep learning curve. It doesn't matter if it's, launching into chronic kidney disease or developing a protocol for PKD or starting a nonprofit. The reason, so I have my own private practice. We see people one-to-one, kind of high-level, in-depth therapy. And we started Renalign as a sister company, a sister nonprofit to go with our regular practice for several different reasons. Partially is I wanted to be able to have a platform where we could advocate for nutrition as a first-line therapy for chronic kidney disease. I really, really believe it is like the cornerstone of good kidney care is nutrition. I mean, nutrition is the cornerstone of good health, period, because it is what fuels our body on every single level. Food is just so amazing and so magical in so many ways. But I really wanted to be able to advocate for nutrition as a first-line therapy because I didn't see anywhere that was being done. And even in traditional, conventional nephrology practice, not all doctors are advocates for nutrition being first-line therapy, and it really has to be. You can put all the meds in the world on board, and they can maybe help you slow decline, but they are not as healing as good food. And for some people, it really can turn things around. So, and that's the primary reason. And then beyond that, it has given us a lot of opportunity to be able to collaborate with people like Santa Barbara Nutrients, be able to collaborate with, physician offices. We're excited because we're launching one of our pilot CKD programs with a nephrologist office later this month. And it's a huge nephrologist office, but, it's a way for us to help support the kidney community and support also professionals, both the physicians and the dietitians who want to offer good therapy. But you need to have someone that's going to support you in that, because good nutrition therapy is not a handout. It's not one and done, like one visit and like, hey, like you're good to go. We've talked about all the things you need to know. Making a life, anybody who is engaged in health, they realize that the process of change takes a little bit of time. It oftentimes takes someone to encourage you, help you get your mind in the right place, that you're focusing on the right thing. For us, we say focus on health, not disease, kidney health, not kidney disease. And that process is life-changing, and you can't do it with just a handout, and that's a big gap. So for us, we saw a big gap. We wanted to fill it. We wanted to have a platform where we could advocate. We also wanted to have a platform where we could bring the nephrology community in, whether it is on donations, whether it's on grants, whether it's on research, but all of those pieces of driving change in nephrology, a nonprofit allows us to do in a very different way than a for-profit private practice.
Okay. So how does it work exactly? Does somebody come to, they go to Renalign, the website, and they sign up for services, or how do you connect people together once they actually do?
That's a good question. Well, so Renalign is, I call it my baby, right? Like it's our baby in our private practice because we fund a lot of things into it. Right now, all of the relationships that we have built have been private relationships. So like with the nephrologist, we reached out to him, we talked with him, we already had the program built and we piloted. On the website right now, there's not a public offering for anybody, but because we're piloting both our programs. So our CKD program is going into pilot stage in the nephrologist office. It's gone through a couple different rounds and now it's ready to be in a community. And then the Renew program that we're doing with Santa Barbara Nutrients, that is in week seven right now of its 12-week pilot. And so as soon as Keto Citra is released and we get done with this pilot of the program, then we'll open it up to the, more of the population. So right now you can go there, you can look at our stance, you can look at our advisory board, you can look at all the people that are involved with us, but you can't sign up for any of the programs yet. You can get on the wait list though. So if you're interested for polycystic kidney disease, you can go look at, you can go to the renew.org, which is just, the specific site for Renew. And there's a download of a 3-day meal plan. So you get some really amazing recipes. And then you can get on the wait list for the program in the fall.
Okay. All right. You put a lot of stuff out there for that one. That was there's a lot of things there to unpack. And I'll get to some of them in a moment.
Sorry.
So you have renal line, and you found that there was this unmet need for chronic kidney disease. And I think that's kind of your big push there, right? And I think you highlighted that you think that diet is this big piece of the picture. Why do you think diet is such a big part of treating chronic kidney disease?
Man, talk about a lot to unpack. That's a huge question. There's so many different pieces to it that it's influential. You can't just say there's one. So when we practice, we talk about let me make it easy for us. Okay, otherwise I'm going to give the whole spiel and I teach for an hour.
Well, so I think that you're right. There's a lot going on there. I agree. How about let's start at the fundamental parts. What's happening in the kidney? Let's just start from a very brass tacks perspective. What's happening in the kidney that is so impacted by diet? How about that part first?
Yeah, none of these questions are simple one-line answers, which is a little bit of a problem. And
that's probably it's okay.
I think the piece that will very much clarify this is that when you're looking at kidney disease, there's kind of two ways you leverage dietary therapy. One is you're preventing complications, and the other is you're preserving function. This is a very important distinction because the preventing complications gets all the attention. That's what everything online is about. It's about potassium, phosphorus, sodium, and sodium can slow progression. It's about, you'll see a lot of stuff about fluid, and almost all the information online is really focused on people, honestly, on dialysis, even though they'll write it for everyone with kidney disease. Then you have this piece about preserving kidney function. That's where we focus. And there's so many things going on in the kidneys. For example, let me just give you an example. The kidneys, as they are losing, the kidneys produce hormones. They also are filtering waste, among many, many other things. So as your kidneys start to decline, you're going to start producing, or you're just going to start filtering less waste. And that can end up causing a real cascade of problems. So being able to target what kind of waste the kidneys would be filtering and reduce that amount of waste or toxins or whatever that's going through there ends up being a huge opportunity. That's where protein, a lot of discussion on protein, comes into play. What type, how much, because of the wastes that are produced as protein is broken down, and those are primarily filtered through the kidneys. One other example on the hormone basis, as kidneys decline, they produce a hormone called erythropoietin, and that has to do with producing red blood cells. And so people at later stages of kidney disease can start becoming very anemic because the kidneys are not producing this hormone as much. And so being proactive with anemia and making sure people have stores of B vitamins and iron can be really important in preventing the anemia from becoming enhanced and exacerbated early on. So two little exametals. There's many more.
I know there's a lot more. There's a lot more pieces to that. Okay, so kidney function declines. That's what we're trying to prevent, right? That's the preventative part, right? Is preserving kidney function. And most of the things people focus on are these preventative of kind of the things once you already have advanced kidney disease, people are trying to prevent the catastrophic parts of kidney disease, right? Like the, strokes, heart attacks, all these things that kind of are, that actually kill you at the end, from having a damaged kidney.
Yeah.
right? That's kind of what people are.
There's a huge connection between the heart and the kidneys, and nothing is in isolation in the bodies, and so being able to look at the whole picture really helps you see how you can leverage nutrition. Nutrition is everything. That's how our body is fueled and how it runs. Being able to leverage nutrition ends up being very powerful for every part of your body.
Okay, so now that we've got a kind of like a little base for some things that could be going wrong with the kidney, what is it about diet? It's like what are some big things that diet can do? Powerful impacts that it can have on kidney function.
Some of that's getting into root cause, right? So let's talk about difference between PKD and CKD. So polycystic kidney disease, a root cause is obviously cyst growth. And cysts are driven from your guys' research by glucose. And diet is definitely going to drive glucose availability in the body. And so if you're using diet to reduce that glucose availability and even provide nutrients that would shrink the cyst, beta-hydroxybutyrate, which would get ketosis, then you are leveraging a strategy, right, that is going to actually address one of the root causes of the kidney problem, which would be the cyst growth. That's why a ketogenic diet and utilizing a diet to push biochemical processes in the body is really powerful. Chronic kidney disease, the root cause can be a lot of different things, such as inflammation, for example, could be inflammation. Usually it's very multifactorial, so it's hard for me to say there's this one thing. PKD is a little bit easier on that example, but a little bit easier because we can just talk about cysts. But even chronic kidney disease, you're looking at where is the hit coming from? Is there like a toxicity? Heavy metals are super toxic to the kidney, so did they have a heavy metal exposure? Or is there a problem with, hypertension and the vascular system, and how are we going to enhance vascularization? Or is inflammation this major driver here, and how are we going to decrease inflammation? And the diet plays into all of that because, diet is not really a neutral player. You either win or you lose from it. So you might as well win from it. If you're going to eat, you want all that food to be fueling health versus fueling other processes.
Yeah, I agree. Just to remind everybody that I'm an academic researcher in addition to my role as a researcher for Santa Barbara Nutrients. You're referring to the research that I did as an academic researcher at UCSB. Okay.
Sorry.
Just so nobody's confused, we haven't done anything here at Santa Barbara Nutrients just yet. We're working on it, but yeah, that was on the academic side of things. My many hats that I wear.
Yes.
Yeah, so I thought there is a lot of relationship between what you mentioned about chronic kidney disease and polycystic kidney disease. Ultimately, they have defects in metabolism. I think that was kind of what you're really underscoring there, is that these things are then regulated by, like you said, inflammation. Inflammation kind of pushes metabolism towards more glucose dependent metabolism. And that's a very fundamental part of cell biology that it's interesting because when we're injured or a cell is injured, it kind of turns off all of the normal use of fatty acids because it's like a survival mechanism, and usually it's because repair or there might be an injury that it's trying to recover from. It thinks there's an injury that it's trying to recover from, and so it starts turning on these glucose dependent mechanisms. And over time, if those are not shut down, they don't allow normal function and repair to go on, and that leads to impairment of kidney function. And I think that's like the crossover. That's why a lot of these things are so similar. And I think with chronic kidney disease and polycystic kidney disease or acute kidney injury, you look at all these different versions of injury. And I mean, this is a kind of the thread that runs through a lot of diseases is this, like you said, inflammation is just a kind of underpins so many things, and diet and what we put in our body is such a big part of regulating inflammation. It kind of is, it's so weird because it's like diet is like, oh yeah, just eat better and things will fix themselves. And it sounds so simple. Like it's like too simple of a solution. So people kind of don't take it as the, as the powerful medicine it is. And it's fascinating because there's so many things that because it's inflammation regulating, it's going to regulate every disease that we kind of know of, because most of them are some sort of defect in metabolism because of inflammation. And so it is fascinating. It felt a little too easy in some ways to kind of like target metabolism as like the problem with polycystic kidney disease, because it's like, well, obviously this has got to be a thing, maybe if we look at nutrition as a potential therapy, that's going to be a good thing. So, you did mention earlier, we talked about the Renew program. And first I want to ask you, like, in your own practice with polycystic kidney disease, I'm sure that you run into these patients from time to time because they're, one of the many forms of chronic kidney disease. What were you finding was the unmet need for polycystic kidney disease?
Well, and I tell this story every time we talk about polycystic kidney disease everywhere, like how I, connect with Dr. Wimes and that sort of thing. But the thing that was really interesting to me with polycystic kidney disease, or what we were seeing, is there's two things that really made me think we needed to do something else. Number one is I didn't see the same outcomes I was seeing with my other patients. I mean, we get these beautiful, beautiful outcomes for many, many of our patients. Their GFR is going up, they're seeing their blood pressure resolve, and we're doing, using plant-based diets and, other pieces as well. But with polycystic kidney disease, I felt like maybe we were stabilizing a part of their function, but then we'd still kind of see a gradual decline. And that's frustrating. People work really hard to change their diet, change their lifestyle, and then not to get the result that they want. And so that was the first thing. I was like, we're not getting the same results here. How come we're not getting the same results? Number two is when you look at some of the research on chronic kidney disease and diet, you'll see that many of the studies are going to control for polycystic kidney disease. In particular, that they're not including that population because it would confound their results. And that in and of itself tells you that there's something different. There's something really different. And that, to me, when the research was published from the Wimes lab at UC Santa Barbara that was saying, hey, we use ketogenic diets and the animal models with PKD, and it's making a difference, I was really interested in that. At first, I'll be honest, I was skeptical because I was like, keto, kidney, like we can't go there. But that's not true. We figured it out. But initially that was my thought, and I was skeptical. But, you have to look for options. If what you're doing isn't working, then don't keep doing it, because that's, obviously, what is the quote on that? Like, that's the definition of insanity. Yeah, because that'd be insane. And we don't want to be mad, insane dietitians. We want to do things that are effective. And so that was really why we were compelled to pursue this and see if we could figure out how to make it work for kidneys.
Okay, so that kind of was my next question. So how did this partnership with Santa Barbara Nutrients start for you?
Okay, there's a little bit of a magical part to the story that you guys don't know. I got to tell you this like little magical tidbit. So in January of 2020, which feels like 7,000 years ago, I had been, doesn't it seem like it wasn't even like a recent lifetime? But January of 2020, prior to that, I had been traveling a lot. Like every other week, I was traveling to speak at a conference. We were negotiating with the health system, and so I was going out there frequently to talk with them. And I have little kids, so traveling is pretty inconvenient, even though I love it. It's very inconvenient at this stage of my life. And there was this conference that Dr. Kalantar at UC Irvine was sponsoring in California. And I was like, I don't know, it's only one day conference. I don't know if I want to go out. I've traveled a whole bunch. But I was like, I just feel like I should go. I just feel like I should go to this conference. I don't know, like you can get those nudges in life. I was like, I guess I'll book a ticket and take my baby and my 3-year-old with me, which is insane because I was flying from Maryland. And well, me and my parents in California, because I have tons of family there. And they can take the kids, and I'll go to the conference, and that sounds really fun, except for the flying part of it with young children. So I booked the tickets, and about the same time, I'd reached out to Dr. Wimes about his keto protocol, and I was like, well, while I'm there, would you mind if we could meet up and talk about this? And that is when so I planned my trip a little bit longer, and while I was out there, came up to the lab and met you and Dr. Wimes and your team there. And so now I actually have a true visual of what your guys' beautiful workspace looks like. And I think that was really kind of the beginning of it, where we just started talking and seeing that there could be, mutual benefit and a mutual goal on both parts to really address, I will never ever brag about any scientific knowledge like your guys' level. Like, I love picking your brain about stuff. And we were able to bring in the food and the nutrition part and all our tools to actually turn it into what people eat. And so it's been a really, really like a great relationship and really an honor for us to work with you guys.
Yeah. When you said 2020, January, it feels a lot longer ago. It feels like a very long time ago. It's like, if you were to ask me, I would have said it was like 2019 or
I remember it was 2020 because LA was the last flight I took before no more flying. And I came home, and actually a few weeks later, my whole family got pretty sick, and I kind of wondered if we got coronavirus.
I think that was a lot of people thought when they had I think I had a cold around that time too. We're all like, did we just get coronavirus or no?
Yeah.
But that was, oh man, that does make it seem like a long time ago. Okay, well, I remember that. That was a very good meeting, I guess, right? Because things have kind of really progressed since then. Now it's been over a year, and right now you're in the middle of the Renew program. So how about you tell me about the Renew program and how that's different from some of the other programs that you've been doing?
Oh, well, number one, we get to collaborate with you guys. But Renew program, so what we did is we had been working on group programming for people with chronic kidney disease. And our program, it's 12 weeks, low protein, lots of tools and resources, all the things that we know are barriers for people to be successful. Those are the things that we were trying to get past. So the Renew program is 12 weeks of learning how to implement a low oxalate, plant-focused, ketogenic approach for polycystic kidney disease. Usually when I say all of those three things together, low oxalate, plant-focused, ketogenic, people are like, their eyes get big, or they either get excited or overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. Either way. But that's what we teach people. And, part of it is teaching the why behind it. Like, why are we restricting oxalates? Why most people already know why they want to get in ketosis by the time before this group that is going through, but why are we doing oxalates? Why are we doing plant focused? Why aren't we doing high levels of meat? Why so we teach the why, but we really more importantly talk about how you do it and also how to get over barriers that come up. So we'll talk about how are you going to get into ketosis, and then what are your meals actually going to look like? What are you going to eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner? What if you're losing too much weight? What if your blood pressure is going down, or what if it's going up? Or, there's so many questions that people have as they're doing a real targeted dietary intervention. So we do the diet piece, and then the other piece that to me is the most important part, even more than diet, is helping teach people how to get into a mindset of healing. And that part we have included in the program as another foundational piece, being able to get past the anger and the fear and the anxiety that comes with a diagnosis like this. And how do you actually leverage those emotions in a positive way for healing? Because if you don't believe you are going to heal or have health, you likely won't. And so we need to get people past how come nobody gave me any options? How come, like get past the anger and actually get into like healing mode and taking control. And it really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a very powerful thing that you said there. I think that's probably overlooked frequently when it comes to, I mean, every healing modality there is. I mean, if that mindset is probably more powerful than, medicines that you're being given a lot of times. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I mean, I agree that is probably going to be without that, you're probably not going to get the same buy-in or the same, outcomes that you're looking for.
Yeah,
so, that's interesting.
And I just say, like, the other piece of that that's really important is you're in a health journey. There's ups and downs, and you have some kinks in the road, and you hit some potholes. A health journey is very rarely just this beautiful linear process. I mean, even if you look at, like, we'll just say, like, professional athletes, their pathway towards their elite status of health and performance was not linear in any way, and neither is that journey for anybody that is working on changing their life to support their health and learn and have to dig in deep. Because of that, it's really easy to get in your head about what you're not doing, how you have to be perfect at it, how you're going to just end up on dialysis anyways. Like, you can really get in your head, and that piece either will make people not want to give up, or else it takes the joy of eating away. And people now are just only care about eating as this, if I don't, then I'm going to get more sick sort of strategy. And that is no way to live long term, because we have to eat all the time. So if food is not joyful for you and you can't find that pleasure part of it, that's a huge quality of life piece as well. So another reason why we feel like mindset's really important.
Yeah, you don't want the cure to be worse than anything else. I think that's a lot of times when people hear ketogenic diet, they do think restriction, and then when you're talking about a low oxalate plant-based version, I mean that is an easy place to kind of go to. So it is good to reframe that as like, that's, what is it like? What are you actually doing this for? Like, why is it important? Creating a value around it. I think that's really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So nuts and bolts stuff. So what is a plant-based ketogenic diet? Let's start there.
You missed one. You missed low oxalate. Plant-based, whatever order you want to say it in. Plant-based, low oxalate, ketogenic, low oxalate. Anyways, I don't know how many versions there are, but plenty. Nuts and bolts. What is it? Man, usually at this point, I just like pull up a picture and I just show people what it looks like.
We can do that. We can put a picture up here. So imagine there's a picture here. We can do that.
Okay, well, I'll send you this picture. So, number one, there's two things that make this approach work. One is we get some good healthy fats in there. Obviously, it's ketogenic, so we have to use a lot of fats. So any of our approaches, we use fat bombs. We use sunflower seeds, sunflower seed butter quite a bit. That's one of the favorites. We use coconut oil. Some people don't tolerate coconut oil really well, but we have some amazing recipes with coconut oil. We've been dabbling recently in cocoa butter as well, just to give some variety in there. But so that's obviously healthy fats is foundational. How you're going to include fats. The second part of this plant-focused ketogenic diet is less meat. So if you're going to pull meat out, what are you going to put instead? Because you can't put a whole bunch of beans in there, because that's a lot of carbohydrate that's going to knock you out of ketosis. You can't put overwhelming amounts of nuts in there because we got oxalates in there. So what are you going to put in there? So we use, to make the diet palatable, we usually do about 1 serving a day of an animal protein, sometimes 2. Otherwise, we're using smart low oxalate brands of soy. We use a lot of vegetable sources of, we'll use like cauliflower. We have some really good cauliflower steaks. We use some mushrooms as well, eggplant. We have a lot of different ways that we make the diet very plant focused. We do use some eggs, some full fat dairy. We tried doing it 100% vegan, and it didn't work. And I didn't even think it was a good diet. I was like, I don't think we even have a full nutrient profile. So use a bit of eggs and a little bit of full fat dairy, but we're careful on the quantities of those, because the tendency of most people when you go towards a ketogenic diet is be like, as long as I'm in ketosis, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And then they load up on eggs for breakfast, cheese for snacks, and then they'd have chicken with a salad for dinner. And that's a whole bunch of protein. If your kidneys aren't working well, that is a lot of toxins that you have to filter that are not going to go well. So we've cut that back, and we add tons of fats. We use a little bit of olives, we use avocado, we use flax and flax bread, all of those things to make it work. It's a beautiful diet. It's colorful. We use fruit in it. I know some people are shocked. A ketogenic diet with fruit, but we can fit in pineapple. We can fit in berries, and it makes it very well-rounded. Okay, third piece real quick is there's a lot of fiber. The fiber is like the clincher on this diet because it allows us to expand the amount of carbohydrates. So we use net carbs. So the amount of carbohydrates minus the fiber is your net carbs. So we're really focused on high fiber foods. How can we fit that in? Because it allows us to get people in ketosis on a higher level of carbohydrates, which means we can get more vegetables in there and some fruit.
Okay. So how are people tracking all of their intake?
Well, for people that track, they track in Cronometer. Most people track. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, so you can cut it out if I'm not supposed to. Dr. Thomas Wines does not track on Cronometer. He does not like to track. But most people track. He's following the protocol himself, so he can give us feedback. But most people track in Cronometer, and that allows them to see, you can see your net carbs. It's an amazing tool. A lot of our recipes that we have developed and utilized, we put them in Cronometer so people can add them really easily. So it makes it really fast. They can do it on their phone. They can do it on their desktop. The other thing is that Cronometer allows you to look at your renal acid load, so you can see how alkaline your diet is, which is a huge component. It does not track oxalates. And anyone who's going to actually track numerically the oxalates in their diet, personally, I think it's insane, because you can't even guess where oxalates are at. I think they are crazy, crazy anti-nutrient or whatever you want to call them out there. But so we teach principles of oxalate management, not necessarily specific gram levels that people have to get to.
Yeah, I mean, the oxalate's really challenging because the data just is not really, it's not really out there, like good tracking of it anyway. You're going to have to guess for the most part for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. That's definitely one of the issues you run into, just that there's, how do you actually know how much oxalate's in a food? And there's not really a good data system out there. The ones that are out there are kind of really old, and you have to kind of cobble them together. Talked to Sally Norton before, and she's the oxalate queen, and she says that that's one of the hardest things about it, is that there's just not a lot of research into where oxalate is.
Yeah, that's true. And, it changes. Like, it can change by where the food is grown. And so if you obsess about the grams of oxalates in your diet, it's probably going to be wrong anyways. So it's good to understand the principles of managing it. That's really, really a key piece.
That's exactly. I think it's kind of a fool's errand to try to track each gram. It's kind of going to be in a range, most likely.
Yeah, 100%.
So you've been the program's been going now for some time. How are things? I mean, are things going well? What have your takeaways been so far?
I love talking about this part in particular. Yeah, I meet with Diana. Diana Bruins, our dietitian who is running the program. She's one of the dietitians who helped us pilot it, in my private practice originally. The first person that we were going to work with, she was the dietitian that worked with the first person. So she's running the program right now. I talk with her every week. So I talked with her earlier this evening, and you meet with her at the beginning of the program, and then at 6 weeks, and then at 12 weeks, then you have weekly classes in between. So she's in that 6-week interview mark right now where she's interviewing everyone. And the commentary has been overwhelmingly positive. People have felt they've loved having a community that they can come into and talk about, this journey of, ketosis and polycystic kidney disease. They felt supported in getting into ketosis and understanding what it is and making sure they're doing it correctly. They love the recipes and the meal plans, which I'm going to say they are pretty amazing because I have done the diet myself and the food is like out of this world. It's actually really, really good. So they love that part of it as well. And I think pretty much every single person is in ketosis. And, some people are in mild ketosis. Some people are in, moderate to high-ish ketosis. And for us, we're learning a lot too right now. We have questions as we're working on with a larger group of people that have come up during this process. But I think people have loved it. I haven't heard anything negative at this point. We've had to, adjust and shift a few things based on people being like, we really want to be able to engage more with the participants. We shifted how the class ran, and but it's been really, really, really fun, I think.
That's good. I'm glad to hear things are going well.
Yeah.
I'm invested. I want to know what happens. I want to know if things are working out positively. It would be, if this works out, I think this is an amazing opportunity to really make a big impact in the polycystic kidney disease community.
Yeah.
This would be something else.
I totally agree, because really, if you have polycystic kidney disease, and we have come to really love the community of polycystic kidney disease on like a very deep level. Like there's really so many stories of, the struggles that people go through, and, but if you have that diagnosis, your options are not very many. Most of the doctors are like, well, we'll monitor you and, hopefully fingers crossed, you're going to slowly progress. And this is now an option, right? Now people can look into this and look at how it can, help them out. And our job, as we're implementing this, it's new, in the last year, right? 1 year, only 1 year old. That's little, is to figure out how we make it work for as many people as possible.
I think I really hope it works out, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next 6 weeks to hear what everybody else has to say.
Yeah. And for us, we're excited to get the lab data back. People really hang their hats on the labs, and we always say, let's focus on also how you feel and, other parameters, but still for us, that is a really important piece. So we're excited to get some of that back and, see what that tells us.
The lab seems to be the carrot, right? That's the thing everybody kind of wants to see improve, because I think that's something you can really they can hang their hat on, and you see that, either not going down or stay, going back up. But it could happen, and I think people feel good about that. And I think that's a great motivator if that happens.
Yep, I agree, 100%.
Yeah, well, I think that's the end of the questions I have for you. I think we've covered a lot here. Is there anything that you want to touch on before we call it a day?
I think probably the only thing is that we really like to get feedback and insight into what we're doing and content that is produced. I think that's really helpful for us. Even if people are going to the renew.org, it's ren-nu.org, and, downloading the meal plan and then giving us some feedback about it, or getting on the wait list. For us, we really want to know what people are interested in. So that's really our ask to people. And then, keep an open mind as you walk through this journey, because I do think there's some solutions. And I also think there's going to be some questions, more questions that come up as we walk this road, but that's good because then we can actually find answers. But
questions are good.
Yeah. But so if you're watching this, go to renew.org and get on the wait list if you're interested in learning about the Renew program. or download the meal plan, get on our email list so we can send you some of, we send out a weekly tip or so to, to give people some ideas.
And if people want to find you, what's the best place that they can find you?
If they want to work with me or any of the dietitians on our team that are trained in polycystic kidney disease and this ketogenic therapy, they can go to kidneyrd.com. And that is where we work with people one-on-one. That's also where we publish any of our recipes. So our recipes are not all keto, but if they are keto, we label them as such. That's where the famous Blackberry Bliss Bomb is. That's a crowd favorite. And yeah,
that's a tease.
They're really good. Yeah, go get the Blackberry Bliss Bomb recipe for sure. We have a sesame ginger pumpkin seed recipe that's to die for. Like every recipe, Diana usually makes most of the recipes, which is why they're so good. So a lot of good recipes out there. Even if you're not in a ketogenic approach, they're if they say keto on them, they're oxalate controlled too, and so you can get some good ideas to kind of mix things up, get some kind of deep nutrients in your diet.
So you're saying this is for the meal plan that is available on the Renew website?
There's some on the Renew website, but if you want to get our updated recipes, you have to go to kidneyrd.com, which is where we blog about them.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned a lot today. I know I did. I'm always learning. I'm glad to have you here today, Jess. I'll see everybody later. Have a good day.
Thanks for letting me be here. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.